Hi everyone, this is Leanna Biddle, she, her pronouns, your career education manager at the Warner College of Natural Resources. Today we'll be talking about interview preparation. So for the Career Services Takeover via Instagram, for the month of August we'll be talking about interview prep. And today we'll be talking specifically about the interview process, what to expect, and how you can best prepare moving forward. And so I'm going to go through some different slides that will hopefully be helpful as you prepare for an interview and think about how you can put your best self forward as you move forward. So the interview process. And so on the left side, you will see an email icon and phone icon. And so from the very start, after applying to a position, if you are selected for a phone interview, Skype interview, or in-person interview, you may be contacted via email or by phone. And so that may be the first point of contact with an employer to set up an interview. From there, like I mentioned, you may have a phone interview or a Skype interview. Maybe it's not Skype, maybe it's Teams, maybe it's Zoom, but the employer should help you with the platform that you'll be using. From there, if not the first interview, you may have a second interview, and that could be in person. And so again, the in-person might be in that first round of interviews. It just depends, and every employer is different in terms of how much they want to interview a person for a specific position. And so typically this is the process or timeline that I see with interviewing, but it may change depending on the employer. But regardless, it's good to be prepared for a phone interview, Skype interview, or in-person interview. First steps. So as you think about your interview and as you think about the organization, it's important to know the environment. That doesn't mean it has to be the physical space, but it could mean that it's the mission, vision, values of the organization. So on the right, I pulled the mission and vision from the Career Center. What you can do is better learn about the organization and include snippets of the mission, vision, and values in your interview to show your interest in the specific position and the organization itself. Be sure to research the website additionally for any information that might be helpful in your interview, potentially news articles, and maybe even the history of the company, again to learn more about it so you can bring up those different facts in your interview. Utilize LinkedIn as a way to conduct research. The alumni tool via LinkedIn is a great way to research alum who currently work for the organization or who worked for the organization. You can also, by the website, research who works for the organization to have a better idea of who you may be able to connect with prior to the interview or who you may be interacting with during the interview. So again, all great ways to better understand the organization and better learn about it before you get into that interview space so you feel most confident moving forward. Know yourself. Think about who you are, your skills, your experiences. Make sure to read the job description and highlight or note keywords or phrases that you want to align in your interview. Thinking strategically about the resume that you submitted and what were some of the connecting points that you brought forward. What can you bring forward in your interview as well? Reflect on the application you submitted. Again, what did you put within your resume? What did you put potentially within your cover letter? Some different experiences that you could highlight. And what did you not include? What experiences can you bring up that the employer may not have information on yet? So again, trying to make that connecting point with the job itself. What are some experiences you have and what are some of the skills that you've gained or are hoping to gain in relation to the job? Reflect on challenge areas and ways in which to counteract that in your answers. We all hate the dreaded question of what is your biggest weakness, right? So if you think about that question preemptively like a challenge area, you can come in prepared knowing what is a challenge area of yours and being able to speak to that and what you're doing now to better yourself in terms of that challenge area. What are some of the steps you're currently taking? So good thinking about what are some ways that you can prepare so you feel most confident again in the interview setting, whether it be phone, whether it be Skype, or whether it be in person? So as I mentioned before, the phone interview. How do you best prepare for a phone interview? It may be the first interaction that you have with an employer in the interview process. And so I wanted to provide again some different tips or ways that you can prepare for this type of interview specifically. So in preparing, print your resume and supporting documents. The benefit of a phone interview is that you're not yet in person. And so you're able to have your resume in front of you. You're able to lay out some of those documents so you can more readily see some of the experiences that you want to highlight potentially during the interview process. Enter into a space with plenty of cell service. For your comfort, make sure that you have cell service so you're not worried about potentially dropping the call or having an employer have a difficult time connecting with you. So it's more for peace of mind as you move forward. Be aware of your surroundings. If you're home, maybe check in with your roommate, check in with your partner that you are having an interview so that they're not banging pots and pans in the kitchen, right? Be aware of where you are. Dress for the interview. This is always a fun one to highlight because I have been that candidate, if you will, who has the PJ pants on bottom and the dress top on top. And I did not feel as confident in the interview process. And so dress for the interview so that, again, you feel most confident as you are connecting with the employer and answering some of those, what could be more difficult questions. Feel ready for it. Be aware of time zones. So Pacific Standard Time, Mountain Standard Time. Again, be aware of the time zones, especially if you are looking to get a job internationally. And if you do have an interview by phone, be aware of that so that you're not caught off guard and getting a phone call potentially at 7 a.m. in the morning when you're not ready for it. Throughout the interview, remember to smile when able. So typically when you're smiling, you sound happier, you sound more engaged, whereas if you're not, the employer may not be able to better understand your personality. It's just a way, again, that you can stand out and shine through in the interview process without being in person or being able to see one another. Be concise but informative with your answers. Be confident in what information you have to provide. It's so easy with a phone interview to wonder, am I talking too much? Am I not talking enough? Is the employer resonating with me? With not being able to see the person or the employers that you're interacting with, you don't have those social cues, if you will. And so plan ahead, prepare, and think about the answers to some of those questions as you think about what you may want to say. Think about what questions might be asked and prepare as such that, again, you feel confident going through. A Skype interview. So very similar to a phone interview in terms of preparation, but a little bit different. So very similar, print your resume and supporting documents and make sure you have internet access. Again, making sure that you're able to connect with the employers via the internet. Dress for the interview. Very similar. Put on the attire that you feel most comfortable in, your best professional self, if you will, and check the area behind you. Make sure it's clean and organized. I've heard of some horror stories with students or candidates going through the process and having an inappropriate poster behind them and not realizing it, or even a heap of laundry, dirty laundry at that, and the employer making note of that. So again, just be aware of your surroundings and where you are during the interview process. Very similar to the in-person, treat this as an in-person, right? Treat it as you interacting with folks to the best of your ability. Though it is Skype, there's a different dynamic, and treat it as an in-person interview. In person. So in arriving, you are on. That means being ready to interact with anyone from the organization, whether it be inside or outside of the building. Arrive early so you don't feel rushed. That is a terrible feeling, rushing to an interview and not being able to take a moment to breathe, maybe take a sip of water and prepare for the interview prior to going in. So arrive early so you, again, don't feel rushed. Leave all miscellaneous items behind, more so that you don't have too much to hold during the interview process. In entering the office, be friendly to all those individuals that you interact with. You might be interacting with people who are working at the front desk, people who are going through the office from room to room. You never know who you're going to work with, so make sure you're friendly to all those people that you are meeting, whether it be in the actual interview or getting to the organization and the building itself. Throughout the interview, utilize behavior-based interviewing methods. So the STAR method is a great way to really think about how you can answer some of those more open-ended questions. Tell me about a time when. So you have S, which is situation, T for task, A for action, R for result. So thinking through your experiences and mapping them out in that way so then you can articulate that during the interview process and again feel more confident in the experience you are talking about. Greet your interviewer as you find culturally appropriate and be gracious. Thank you for having me today. Thank you for taking the time to interview me for this position. Be thankful for this opportunity. Be aware of your body language. It's so easy in a chair to touch your hair, for example, if you have a pen in your hand, to fidget with your pen, right? Be aware of some of those different nervous habits that you may have, and just be mindful of that as you move forward. Expect the unexpected. With interviews, you never know what's going to happen. You never know if there's going to be construction in or around the building. You never know if someone might be running late. So just be adaptable during the interview process. It will go a long way with the employer. Ask questions. Make sure you have at least 10 questions prepared for the employer. And some of those questions might be answered as you go through the interview process, and by then you may just have four, and that is fine. But again, come prepared with questions. It shows your interest in the position. And with all of that said, be your authentic self. Interviewing can feel intimidating, it can feel a little bit awkward, but know that it's a process that many people go through. And to give yourself grace and to be mindful of that. Do your work in preparing, bring water if needed, take a couple breaths during the interview process, and try to enjoy the experience. Last but not least, what to wear. So, my philosophy around interviewing is dress for success and your personal best. When you feel good, when you feel like you can conquer the world, maybe you have had a classroom presentation where you dressed up a bit and you felt really good presenting to your peers. Dress as such and know the environment, conventional or more casual. For my students who maybe want to work outdoors as a park ranger, maybe the attire is a bit more casual than those who want to work in environmental consulting. So just thinking through that lens in the business itself. Regardless, overdress rather than underdress. I always say what you perceive the attire is. So business casual, for example, plus one. Business professional, plus one. So that you feel again most confident as you move forward. If you're wondering what specific attire looks like, we did partner with the Pride Resource Center and we have some gender neutral options within the Resource Center. The link clicked here. It should be in the resources too within Instagram, and so that might be helpful for you as you move forward. Lastly, bring a briefcase, professional bag, or portfolio if needed. So again, that you have if you bring resume, if you bring the job application itself, if you bring any additional pieces of information, you have a place to put that information so that again, you feel more confident as you move forward. All options, and if you want to have an individualized conversation about what this looks like, please feel free to reach out. We can definitely have that conversation. So with that, that is all I have for you in terms of the preparation piece. Next week, we'll be talking about some of the tips and tricks for interviewing, additional to how to prepare. In the meantime, if you have any questions or would like to talk about this further, please feel free to reach out via email. I'm happy to help. Thanks.